Amen. Well, I want to invite you to turn in your Bibles once again to Matthew chapter number 6. Matthew chapter number 6, as we'll be looking in Matthew chapter number 6. All right. I'm on. We have spent a good bit of time already in the book of Matthew, and we are just getting started. Amen. And what a wonderful study it has been. And today we're going to be looking at stress. How many of you like dealing with stress? We're going to be looking at things that we're not to stress over. If you'll remember that in Matthew chapter number 6, we got a chance in verses, I believe it was like 16 down to verse number 24 there. We were looking at where to put our treasures and where we're to store them. And today we're going to be looking at the necessities of life. The necessities of life. And why we're to do with the necessities of life. It's sad to say that many of us we stress over the things that God tells us that we're to give Him and to let Him have it. Matter of fact, we're going to cover this, but for the child of God, we're not to worry. It is a for the child of God, it is a sin to worry. And we need to really realize that in our lives, that when things come in our life that we fret about, and it just makes us all out of wits about ourselves, and we don't know what to do, and we're just so anxious. We need to realize that God does not desire for us to be in that position. Never. I couldn't imagine. Could you imagine Paul waking up the day that they were going to execute him and saying, "Oh my goodness gracious, what we're going to do? I'm going to die. I'm going to die. If I just stayed over there in Philippi, I'd have been all right." That ain't what Paul did. Paul said, "I'm ready. I'm ready to depart." You know why? Because Paul had full confidence in God. I'm sort of getting ahead of myself, but I want you to realize that when we worry and we stress, it is actually because we don't have confidence in God. That's a hard pill to take, but it's the truth. We like to think that we gave the Lord our lives and we gave the Lord our hearts and we want to live for Him and we want to serve Him, but when things come in our life and shake us, it shakes us and makes us worry and to fret over things. It's because our belief in what God's capable of doing is being shaken. And the truth is, God's able to do. I'll just be honest with you. If we were to get together in this room right here and sit down and think about what God can do you know that we would not even be able to hit the surface of what God's really able to do. He is so he's far beyond what we even think He is. We just scratch at His word that He gave us to be able to see Him, to be able to glean some truths out of it. But He is far deeper and far greater than any of us can even imagine. Even the wisest of the wise that have ever lived have only scratched the surface about who God is and His ability. So let's look in verse number 25, and we'll read down to verse number 34, and then we'll pray and we'll look into what the Lord has for us. Verse number 25 of chapter number 6 says this right here. It says, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto your statue? And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? Therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewith all shall we be clothed? For all of these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Let's pray. Father, once again, I thank you so much for your good grace and mercy. And Lord, I ask that you'd help me and that you would give me ability to be able to speak. And Lord, remembrance, and Lord, that you would help me to be able to bring forth the things that I have, that I've studied. And Lord, I pray that you'd help us to see what you desire for us to see in these scriptures. And Lord, that you would deal with our hearts and lives concerning anxiety and stress, and Lord, where our trust really is. Lord, we love you. We thank you for all that you do for us. We ask that you would bless and have your will. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, you notice that in this passage of Scripture, the phrase, take therefore no thought, is mentioned 3 times. It is given here as a understanding of or the meaning of it is that of anxiety, or the heart of it is that we're not to fret, not to worry. Worry is one of the greatest parts of the life of mankind. To say that we have not worry would be lying. To say that we don't stress over things would be just stretching the truth. We'd be exaggerating to say that our faith is just that strong that, hey, listen, I don't worry about nothing. But the truth is that, I stay awake just like y'all do at night many times because I worry, because stress is that great. And we live in a stressful place, a stressful society. But the Lord doesn't desire for us to be that way. As a matter of fact, for a Christian, it should be something that we do not do, because it is a sin. It is a sin against God. The child of God should not worry because of the fact that when God's in control, we should have full confidence in what's going on. No matter if we can see the outcome, we should still be able to trust Him. If we cannot see the end result of what's taking place in our life, we still should be able to trust in God, knowing that He is working His work. William Inger said this right here: worry is interest paid on trouble before it is due. Another writer said this right here. He says, worry is a thin stream of fear that trickles through the mind. If encouraged, it will cut a channel so wide that all other thoughts will be drowned in it. Another writer said this right here. Worry is wasting today's time to cutter up tomorrow's opportunities with yesterday's doubts. And that is so true. But worry is something that we entangle ourselves with. Worry is much like fog. Fog that is 100 feet deep and 7 blocks wide, so thick that it would lock down that area of town, is compassed of one glass of water split up into, or divided up into 60 billion drops. There's not much there, but it sure does shut down a city. It's a great illustration with worry. There's not much in worrying, but it sure can mess up a lot of people. Worry is that by which God desires for us not to do. The focus of worry is revealed in verse number 25. It says, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, or what you shall drink, or nor yet for your body what you shall put on." For Christians, there's no place for this type of worry. These are the common things of life that is given here. And because the Lord says that this is my area to take care of, we should not worry about it. All throughout Jesus' life and preaching and the Sermon on the Mount and all the Gospels and even the epistles, we find ourselves in the place where Jesus continually teaches us that we're to trust God. Put our trust in Him. Even before in the teaching of the Word of God, where we're to store our treasure. It was not down here on earth, but it was in heaven. So our worry should not be consumed or occupied concerning the mundane things of everyday living on this earth. We're not people of this world. We're the children of God. Our thoughts and our actions need to be greater. We're to set our affections above, not here on earth. We're to lay up our treasures in heaven. We're to seek first the kingdom of God. And this brings in our life a freedom to be able to serve God and not to be stressed all the time. God is our caretaker. He is the one that looks after our lives. He's the one that we put our trust in. These are basic principles that are given to us in these verses right here of the spiritual life and how not to be bound, earthly bound here in this world. Now, to give you a little bit of background from what we've already studied, we're studying the Sermon on the Mount, and the Lord has laid a standard for the people. He has given them a new standard for themselves. He has given them a new standard for the world, and He's given them a new standard for God's Word, and He's given them a new standard of moral issues, a divine standard of religious worship, and He gives them what they're to do with their money and their possessions, where they're to put their focus. And through the Sermon on the Mount, the Lord is doing that, just giving them the character by which He desires for them to have. God desires for them to have the right attitude, to be committed to His Word, to have the right religious actions, to have the right moral values, and to have a right sense of money and possessions, and to have the right prayer life. In other words, God sweeps through the Word of God and the great Sermon on the Mount, and He gives us these points by which He touches every principle of our being to show what is necessary. And then He comes not only through that to the place of necessities, simple things, food, drink, clothing, the simple things of life. He desires for us to give to Him and to trust Him for. Seems so easy, doesn't it? Say, I trust the Lord. Lord, I'm going to trust You today. Provide my food. Clothe me. We don't worry about that here. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. We live in the United States. There's a grocery store right down the road here. There's not very many people that worry about what they got to put on. I mean, even the people that are begging on the street up here at the park have enough to be able to go get meals every day. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was looking on Facebook, and a policeman had taken in custody a guy that was begging money, and on his possession he had $250. The policeman asked him, said, "Where'd you get this?" He said, "I get this working every day." He's making $250 every day. There's people that don't make that work a hard job. But yet it's easy money for them. But for us to think that we can really understand what the Lord's saying here by not just looking at the circumstances that are given, we have to back up and really look at what's going on. Because He gives us 3 times in these passages of Scripture the exact same phrase. Take no thought. Take no thought. In verse number 25, when He says take no thought, He means stop worrying. But when you go down to verse number 31 and it says take no thought, it is a different word. It doesn't mean stop worrying. It says don't start worrying. You should never start worrying. He covers both assets of anybody that's out there. He says, if you're worrying, stop. If you're not worrying, don't start. Why are we not to worry? He says, because for our lives, when it talks about our lives, it's talking about the fullness of it. The earthly position of it, the physicalness, the externalness of our life, every aspect of it that's in this world, that we're not to be anxious. And we're not to be concerned about the temporal, the external, the physical, the earthly. But yet, that's mostly what we look at, what we worry about. Worry about, am I going to get sick? Am I going to, if I go to the doctor tomorrow, am I going to have cancer? Or am I going to have my knee replaced? Or I have to have my hip replaced? We worry about the physical. Worry about what the economy is going to be like. The external. How are we going to survive? How are we going to make it? How's our kids going to do? How's my grandkids going to be able to get through? It tells us, take no thought. Stop worrying. And don't worry at all. He begins verse number 25 with the word therefore. You remember, I know I've said it here, I don't know if you remember it, but if you ever see the word therefore, you look to see what it's there for. That is the key. And it's always there to connect what's already been taught in the past verses. So He is connecting that of storing our treasures up, which is our wealth and our stockpiling that we already talked about. It's not talking about living. It's talking about that it was over and above that what we were able to live on, that we stockpiled, that we've accumulated. He's saying though your mind should be in one place, you should have one thought pattern that he's already given us the understanding in verses 19 through 24 that there were three elements by which we were to learn, or principles. Number one was that earthly treasures corrupt. That moisture and moth and rust corrupt them. But not only that earthly treasures blind spiritual vision. And you'll remember that from verses 22 and verses 23. That if your eye has light or darkness, and it's all based upon our spiritual, or either our treasure is spiritual or our treasures are earthly. And if we have an earthly eye that views things, then our spiritual deception will be hindered. And then thirdly, that we must choose between God and money. Who's our master? Those were the three principles that he gave us. And then he comes and says, therefore, after we've established where our focus, our drive's going to be, our servitude's going to be. He said, now it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty. Your basics. That's every day. Your food, your water, your clothing. The necessities of just everyday living. It should not preoccupy your life. It should not preoccupy your thoughts. It brings us to a place. I want to get to it. I'm going to skip all this other stuff. Maybe we'll catch up to it later. But he gives us in these scriptures three things that we're to learn on why we're not to worry in these necessities. Number one is it's unnecessary because of our Father. We shouldn't worry because of the Father that we have. Number two, it is uncharacteristic because of our faith. And number three, it is unwise because of our future. Those three things we're going to look at, but we're only going to look at one of those tonight, and that is that one of it is unnecessary because of our Father. It is unnecessary because of our Father. We should never worry about any kind of financial or physical or anything that's based on in this world or has a basis around our life, especially what we would eat or drink or wear, because we have a Father. A Father. A Father that cares for us. A Father that desires to meet our needs. A Father that hasn't forgotten about us. A Father that loves our fellowship. Just to think about your children. Most of us here had children. Just for an example, I remember when Daniel was born. He was born in Mexico. And when he was born in Mexico, when he came out, he did not think one thing about what are they going to put on me. I wondered if they got the right clothes for me. if they didn't get me the blue outfit, then I'm going to be mad. Really, we went to the hospital there, and the doctor already told us that he was going to be a girl, and so we had all pink stuff, and then when he come out, we had to go get all blue stuff. But when he came out, he didn't think about what he was going to wear. He didn't think about, hey, I wonder if they're going to have me something to eat when I get there. I wonder if they're going to have cream soda or Coca-Cola or chocolate pie or brownies or whatever. He didn't think nothing about that. And did you know when he was growing up, I can almost guarantee you there wasn't a time in his mind that he thought about, man, I wish I had a pair of Levi blue jeans. I just cannot see him saying, hey, when he was 4 years old, thinking, I wonder if Mama's going to cook spaghetti or chicken today. I just cannot see it. You see where I'm going with this? The children have no concept of that type of worry. You know why? Because they have full confidence in their father and in their mother. Listen, we should be the same in our action. That because we're children of God and God is our Father, it shouldn't be something that we're worried about, that we're fretting over. The Lord gives us 3 illustrations of this. And the first is food, and the other is future, and then fashion. Let's look at the first one, food. In verse number 26, it says, behold, the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not more better than they? It is said that in Israel that the migration of birds that pass through there in a certain time period is just phenomenal. That there on the sides of the hills of Galilee that you could see the different birds at this time of year. And a lot of the commentaries believe that during the time that the Sermon on the Mount was going on, and they were sit there on that mountainside, that Jesus could just look up in the sky and see all the birds flying by, and those that were on the ground over here, because the migration is there were hundreds and hundreds of birds in Israel at this given time period, by which they believed that it was. And that he would have just pointed out and said, take these birds, for instance. So they don't sow and they don't reap and they don't gather into barns. Yet God feeds them. This bird that has no understanding of what's taking place, but yet a drive within himself that he will be fed. So we're to be like birds. Well, I know this right here. Don't go out tomorrow and hold your head up in the air and think that worms are going to rain from the sky. It's not going to happen. Birds, as they have within them, that God has placed in them an instinct to be able to go and find what they need. What they need. In the book of Job, listen to what it says in the book of Job, and Job 38:41 says this right here. Who provideth for the ravens his food, when his young ones cry unto God? The Bible says that the baby birds, they cry. And when they cry, they're not crying unto their mother and their father, but they're crying unto God. You cry unto God. The little ones have a greater understanding of their Creator than even we do, to know where our needs should be met from. Psalms chapter 147 and verse number 9 says this right here. He giveth to the beast his food, and to the young ravens which cry. Referring again that the birds are fed by God. He says that God feedeth the birds. Aren't you more better than they? Can you see the desire of God's heart? That even with that one of creation by which He has given a desire to meet His needs, and we are greater than they are. Better. Much better than birds. Arthur Pink said this right here. Here we see how the ignorant creature made subject to vanity by the sin of man comes near to their first state and better observe the order of nature in their creation than man does. Isn't that something? That birds have a better understanding of God's ability to provide than we do as human beings. What a wonderful illustration that He gives here. That God takes care of them. Don't you think He'll take care of you? Who He gave His life for, who He loves, God will take care of you. Oh, He feeds them. He feeds them that they may eat. They open their mouth and cry, and they give God His glory by obeying and being fulfilled by God. It's these birds that fly and receive the food from God. You know, they were never made in God's image. They were never designed to be joint heirs with Jesus Christ through all eternity. No bird has ever had a place prepared for them in the house of heaven. But yet, they have a greater understanding of the care of God than we do. Don't you think that He'll take care of you? Oh, there's no doubt that God desires His great gift that He gives us. There's no question that He has given us the gift of life and given us a great understanding of who He is to be His child. Martin Luther said this right here. God wants nothing to do with lazy, gluttonous bellies who are neither concerned nor busy. They act as if they just had to sit and wait for Him to drop a roast goose into their mouth. That isn't what He's saying. He's not saying to do nothing. He's saying, though your effort, or through your effort, God will provide. That's what God desires. For us to trust Him and to do what God says do, and through it, God will provide. So the thought is simple then. We should never worry about your food because the necessities belong to our Father, and He will provide our food. Then He gives a second illustration. It is the future. He says in verse number 27, He says, which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit to your statue. Boy, I tell you what. I don't know if there's anybody in this place that hasn't wanted to change something about themselves somewhere along the way. I wish that I had hair. Woo! Ain't that right, Daniel? Yeah. I wish that I just had me a luscious, full head of black hair. I want black hair like Brother Jeff's got. Black hair to slick down real tight to my head. Boy, that'd look really nice. Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to have. I'd like to be one of them buff muscle men, amen? Really, really sturdy and strong and bulky. Maybe just be a little bit like 20 pounds lighter. Maybe not have squinty eyes, but have me some big eyes like my wife, big blue eyes, not these little dinky green things that I got here. I mean, which of us can give thought and change a cubit? What he's talking about is our height. Add to our height. I mean, who? And he's not really saying how many of you want to be 6'7" or 7'6", because if you added 18 inches to you, you'd probably be 7'8". Nobody wants to be that tall. I mean, people that are tall, they want to be short. And people that are short, they want to be tall. People that are skinny, they want to be fat. Fat people want to be skinny. People that are bald want hair. People that have hair say, I wish I didn't have so much hair. I don't know what to do with it all. I mean, we worry about our future. Worry about things that we definitely cannot change. We're to be satisfied with the design that God has. In essence, when he talks about this right here, he's not just talking about the statue, about where we are, but in every aspect of our life. We worry about lengthening our life here on earth. Living longer. Do you know that living longer is probably the greatest downfall of Christendom that there ever was? Do you realize that in the first, I want to say in the first 300 years of Christendom was the greatest, most evangelic process that ever took place. And the reason being was because they were dying for what they believed. They were willing to give their lives. And it was spreading like wildfire. It's not no more. You know why? People aren't willing to give up what they've got for what they really believe. We say we are. But I want to tell you, I learned a long time ago that saying something and when it gets ready to happen, it's two different things. He desires for us to let God have all that God has planned in our lives. God has determined in a time for us by which we will live. We're to trust Him in that time period. We're to give Him everything. We're not to say, well, I'm just going to exercise more and I'm going to be more healthier. There's no doubt that I want to exercise more. As a matter of fact, I do exercise a lot. And the reason being is because when I get to be 80, I still want to be able to move. If the Lord lets me live that long, I want to be able to have the best life I can have at 80. So I exercise. Because I know what it's like. I know what it's like. I'm only 58. And I've seen myself to the place that it hurt to get up from out of a chair. Or I find myself hunched over after I get up until I can get it straightened out. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And when I get 80, I don't want to have somebody to straighten me out. I want to be able to stand up straight. Amen? So we're given these two illustrations about where we're to trust God with the food that we have and with the way that we are, the life that we have. You know, probably the greatest incontentment is that where I'm not satisfied in my life right now. Have you ever been that way? But yet, if we're trusting God and relying on God, why shouldn't we be content with where we're at if we're following God? Not saying that everything in our life is rosy. Not saying that everything in our life is going right. But having confidence in God about what's going on should bring us contentment. Thirdly, he gives us another illustration, that of fashion. He says in verse number 28, he says, "And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field. No, they grow, they toil, how they grow, they toil not, neither do they spin." What a tremendous thought this is. You ever thought what the lilies are? You know, many times when I think about this, I think of water lilies. But that's not what he's talking about there. He's talking about wildflowers that grow on the side of a hill. Those are the lilies that are mentioned here as he is giving this illustration. And on the side of the mountains, you can probably see the different colors that are flourishing throughout the fields that are there as the people are there listening. And it's those wildflowers that are growing. How beautiful they are. I love to take a trip in the mountains and see where they've just taken wildflowers and spread them out, and they're just growing all down the side of the mountain and on the sidewalks and on in the middle of the roads and stuff. And it's just beautiful. It's beautiful there. And Jesus looks across and probably points out all this to those that are around him and says, "Have you thought about the lilies that are growing in the fields?" This is the lily of the field that is growing. It's a generic word that can mean grass, flowers, all that grows there in the midst. And how beautiful it is. And how it clothes the ground and covers it. And it brings great fashion. The sad thing is that there's many people today that live for their closet. What they have. I just can't find nothing to wear. You got a closet full of clothes. You can't find nothing to wear. I got to get me another pair of shoes. You got 57 pairs. How many more you need? I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. We brought ourselves to a place where we get caught in those spending sprees. Black Friday's coming. Oh my goodness. Everything's going to go on sale. We're going to go out and we're going to stay out shopping all night long. We're going to hit all these stores and they got these tremendous sales. And we buy. I believe that's one that's written in 1 Peter chapter number 3, where it talks about that we're not to be adorned with gold and the plaiting of hair and the braiding and fancy garments. That's not where the focus should be, but on the character of Christ. He said that they toil and they spin. Verse number 29 says, "And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory wasn't arrayed like one of these." What do you think he's saying there? I want you to see this right here, because Solomon was the most wealthiest man that ever was. I mean, even today, Bill Gates ain't got nothing on him. Now, the richest man that's alive today has nothing on Solomon. Nothing. As far as monetary and power, there has never been a man that's lived that has what he has. And he was wise, and he had all this fame, and he had all this fortune. And if you look at his life, and you read his words, did he find contentment? He found everything to be vanity. I mean, after he had done all he could do for himself and to bring himself to a place where it would make him that of splendor, he could find none. Just like in ourselves, there's nothing that we can do to make it better. You can't. You're never going to. There's not a self-help program out there that's going to make you better. There's not a self-help program or what is Joel Osteen? I am. Say I am after me. I am good. I am great. I am. There's not a motivational speaker out there that's going to ever be able to motivate you to be happy all the time. There's not. And the reason being is because in us is not the ability to bring what needs to be brought to the table, but God says that He will if we'll let Him. And that's what He's saying in this verse right here. He's saying that all that Solomon was and all that Solomon had is not even compared to the splendor that is in one lily. What's the difference? Well, what Solomon had and what Solomon did, that's what Solomon did. But what God makes is always greater than what man can do. That is why we are to trust Him. That's why we shouldn't be. That's why we should never be overwhelmed by the circumstances of the day. Because the God that we serve and the Father that we have is greater than the day itself, much less the circumstance by which we're in. Oh, if we could come to understanding of these things. Oh, there's so much more that I have here that I want to give you. But I want to say this right here. I want to give you this right here in closing. There was a wildflower and a sparrow talking. Said the wildflower to the sparrow, I should really like to know why these ancient humans begin rushing about and worrying so. Well, said the sparrow to the wildflower, friend, I think that it must be that they have no heavenly Father such as care for you and me. Maybe we are to just take a lesson from the birds and the flowers and trust God. Let's stand together. Father, I thank you so much for who you are. And because of who you are, it is unnecessary for us to worry because you are our Father. Lord, I pray that you would help us not only to say that and to be able to say it, but Lord, to do it in times that it needs to be done. To really trust you. To really put our faith in you. Lord, I pray that you would have your will in our lives. I love you. Thank you for your word. Lord, help us as we look at the rest of it. Lord, to be able to glean truths that would cause us to walk and to live closer to you. I ask these in Jesus' name. For His sake. Amen. Brother Jeff, what we're going to sing?